Hello, Raising Vibrations community. Welcome to another full moon video with myself, Simon. And as you guessed, in today's video, we're going to be looking at the full moon in Cancer. And this is the lunar eclipse that's going to be taking place on the 10th of January 2020. So firstly, just to check in with everybody, I hope that you are doing okay at this point in time, considering the tremendous amount of intense energy that the Pluto-Saturn conjunction is vibrating at the moment, dealing with a lot of world events that are, very, very intense to process, contain a tremendous amount of sadness and sorrow, a lot of pain really trickling through the expression of the collective at the moment. And so I feel like it's just a really great way to just step back for a moment and just kind of acknowledge just for a little bit, what it means to be human, what it means for us as a collective race to really feel into these experiences where, on a day-to-day basis, we are really challenged with some really, really profound questions regarding everything. And I hope today, in today's conversation, that I try to share with a little bit about the context of what these symbols are reflecting to us, and this huge energetic shift that is moving not only through us individually, but also being shared collectively all over the world. So if you do have some space, if you do have a moment just to kind of step back from the busyness of your life, just kind of take 15 seconds out of your time and just kind of really slow right down to this present moment, slow right down to how you're feeling right now, really connecting with your senses, really connecting with the importance of what it means to be alive right now, and how that is playing out in your day-to-day existence. Okay, so I love this picture, and I spent some time really trying to reflect and connect to this energy, and that's my process. That's why I always talk about loving the picture. It's my way of connecting energetically and feeling into the archetypes, really feeling into the essence of what myself and Jen have, thought about, what we've considered to be really important ways in which the energy is expressing, and what information can be supportive to you, while we're sharing this collective experience of huge transformation. So to me, and between myself and Jen, we really came into this essence of this full moon in Cancer, considering that we've had a solar eclipse that happened in Capricorn, on the 26th of December. This energy really spoke to us coming into a place within inside of ourselves in which we can hear our own essence, where we're able to really tap into the storyline, the fabric of who we are, beyond the persona that we have to nurture and cultivate as a way to interact with the world and our lives. So when you look at the picture over here, there's a very clear illustration of the music, or the earpieces, right, that's sitting over there, earpieces, and it's actually connected to this kind of network of what can be perceived and seen as the fabric of consciousness, and the essence of what really makes you. We as human beings are so much more. Things that are happening around us are so much more detailed. There's so much more information that's moving around us, and part of our capacity to sense what is occurring in our environment has a lot to do with the fabric of our nervous system. It has a lot to do with the way that our body is consistently interfacing with the signals that we're experiencing as we're having a really difficult conversation with somebody. You know, we're hardwired to really pay attention physically to our environment as a tool for making sense of what is taking place for us, you know. And Capricorn as an archetype, with the Sun being there, Mercury being there, Jupiter being there, the South Node being there, Pluto being there, Saturn there as well. You know, what I want to really bring to the conversation is this deep, deep sense that what is real for us right now, okay? This is the kind of word here. What is real for you right now in this present moment? What is real for you? Are you struggling with some anxiety? Are you struggling with a sense of dread or fear? Are you feeling positive and joyful and optimistic? You know, what is really real for you right now? And the connection to the picture over here in terms of how the part of ourselves that connects to the different expressions, the way in which we are biologically evolved is so much more complex than the way that the ego personality can actually define. There's so much more going on. There's so much more to us. And when we feel into the fabric of our expression, the nature of our tune, the nature of our voice, the nature of the specific frequency, you know, this is what human design talks about in terms of really getting clear around what is the specific frequency that you are and what is this frequency that you're sort of attaching yourself to as an idea of what you think you are, you know. And this is about really feeling into Capricorn, again, the archetype of really feeling deeply into the essence and to the space that you're at right now. Where are you right now? You know? And the picture as the eyes represent this closing the attention that we place outside of ourselves and returning inwardly to what is really occurring inside, and feeling into that experience, feeling into how the nervous system and how the neural, how our awareness works, you know, how our neuroscience works, as we feel into the different multidimensions of what we are, the relationship. Like if you look at the core, if you look at this picture over here, you can see that it starts out as a core kind of branch, you know, from a tree, and then it spans out and slowly starts to, you know, form into different, more softer, more sensitive, more diverse, okay, expressions. And so we can have a relationship in our life that is, you know, that has this core theme, but surrounded this difficult relationship that we have to our mother, or a difficult relationship that we have to our sibling, or, you know, somewhere in our life, our relationship to how we feel in our work, our relationship to our children, you know. There's a core kind of storyline that really shapes us, and that the surrounding experience in that relationship dynamic, you know, is more subtle, it's more nuanced. You know, it's not just as simple as, oh, I will just say this and then that should end itself, or it's more complex. And how do we feel into those experiences? How do we feel into the subtle nuances of the trust that is maybe potentially broken down between yourself and your brother, or yourself and your mom, or, you know, and how did those take place? And to go even deeper into this experience, as I encourage us to really explore the depth of what's recurring here, is that as we feel into these experiences, we see that everybody's arriving to a point in their life that has the story that has shaped them. And if we're quick to, Capricorn, judge the experience very straight away, it limits our capacity to really understand the full breadth and the full depth of what it actually means to be human. Because we've got potentially triggers, we've got uncomfortable sensations that are in our body that remind us of negative experiences, that when we try to open up and embrace a deeper layer of expression towards, say, for instance, trying to repair a relationship, or trying to create deeper union with your partner, or that you're finding that the growth cycle in your career, as an example, is wanting to, take off, or you're feeling uncomfortability around the potential of taking a new step in a direction and really, stepping more into your power. Like, think about all of the things that are really surrounding it. Think about the nature of how that came to be, and really feel into the complexity. And of course, this is an exercise of not really getting in, kind of overwhelmed by it, but just to really notice and be aware in a very still and present state. Because I feel like it is an incredible exercise for us to come into the understanding of this relationship in Capricorn, So I'm gonna switch over to the chart, and also like to say hello to everybody over there. Before I look at the chart and just kind of spend some time, I know that we were unable to do a new moon in Capricorn video during the solar eclipse. It was a really intense period for us over here. Everybody just got sick, and so for us, we really struggled with what was the message of the solar eclipse in Capricorn, in the sense that it was really pointing to something of, hey, take care of yourself, make sure that you're also checking in with your own emotional space, and you're nurturing that as well, and allow yourself to feel that it's okay to take a break, every so often. So hopefully today's video in some sense nurtures you and provides you with some food for thought, and stirs up a little bit inside of yourself, or at least that's my objective, or my aim with this conversation, So there you've got this incredible connection of the South Node, Jupiter. So this is the lunar eclipse that's going to be taking place. As you can see, the lunar at 20 degrees Cancer, the sun 20 degrees there. Mercury is in a conjunction to the sun, right? Combust. You've got Saturn and Pluto in a conjunction as well. And then you've got Jupiter and South Node in conjunction. So you've got this really interesting pairing between Mercury, Sun, South Node, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, right? And for those of you that follow human design and are aware of it, we're going to have on the 12th, we're going to have this conjunction, of course, of Pluto, Saturn, and Mercury and the Sun are going to be all in that conjunction as well. And that all moves into the head center and in gate 61. And gate 61 in the hexagram and in the human design philosophy, reflects this. It's an individual circuitry, so it speaks to the capacity or the pressure that we receive to explore the unknown. And it's this pressure to explore the unknown beyond what we even know is the unknown in that way. So this energy right now is really, really pushing the envelope to know our truth, to explore something that is beyond what we are familiar with, and to really kind of, open us up to understanding different dimensions of ourselves, of what our awareness is possible and potential to actually understand, So this lunar eclipse that's taking place over here in Cancer, as you can see, it's squaring the Chiron at 0 degrees or 1 degree Aries. And if you remember correctly, through the video that I did with Chiron in Aries, I spoke a lot about the theme of humanity understanding that deeply embedded within the substructure of our emotional imprinting, within our DNA, within our cellular memory, we have come through a tremendous amount. It was only, just under 100 years ago that we experienced World War II. I mean, the intensity of such a catastrophic event is pretty profound. And now we sit again with this constant bombardment through the media that you're looking at Australia, for instance, which is in and of itself an intensely experience of really, really making us fully aware of not only our frailty and making us aware of the things that at any point in time, there can be events that can take place in our lives that, you know, really push us to the edge of understanding what it means to be human, as I said, and what it means to occupy this planet in a way in which, you know, we're interacting with life and we're seeing life around us, and, you know, and we're observing that our relationship to this ecosystem and how we interact with this ecosystem is always in this dynamic balance. And a lot of the time we can get caught up in losing connection with that. And every so often we come across a Plutonian transit, Pluto, where we're made very aware of this consistent sort of psychological relationship between our feelings of safety, our feelings of security, our feelings of feeling stable, and the abyss and the unknown, right? And I spoke about this, you know, when I did the live stream on the Uranus and Taurus. I spoke a lot about that Uranus and Taurus's transit as it makes a connection to Neptune and Pisces. These type of archetypal structures really bring to the surface within our individual lives, but also collectively, our relationship between our immediate sense of self and this immense like space that we occupy, you know, this existence that it means to be human, and how, you know, that we're on the solar system that is moving around this galaxy that is part of a, you know, part of a bigger galaxy that's part of a nebula, you know, like the nature of of our existence in this microcosm world which we embody. We're always, in a sense, in relationship to that, and it can be very scary. And so, as I said, with, like, for instance, Australia, and thinking about the events that are taking place, you think about the States, for instance, and what recently has just taken place in terms of, you know, Iran. Think about all of the other places around the world in which we're on this constant knife's edge of something potentially going wrong. And that's why I said right in the beginning of this conversation, just for us to kind of take a moment to breathe into, you know, this level of not only our relationship to the events in our lives and how overwhelming they can become, but also how that affects us and how that's consistently pushing us to explore and reshape and reconsider what we actually think is important in our lives. And this is kind of a diminishing effect where progressively, with Neptune's transit through Pisces, and of course Uranus's transit through Taurus, and Pluto's transit in Capricorn, these outer planets are really, 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 you know, shaping and molding the way that we actually define ourselves as a human race. And these experiences that we're consistently interacting with all the time are really, 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 like, pushing us slowly in the direction of reshaping the context of what we consider to be important, what we consider to be a new way of living. And this is a progressive change. With Saturn's transit over Pluto at this point in time, we're becoming very aware of that. Saturn is the archetype within our consciousness that speaks to what is real for us in this moment. There are many other descriptions around the context of Saturn, but this is for what is really real for us in this moment. And Pluto and Saturn conjunction is speaking to what is ending for us. Where are there support structures, or should I say, where are there structures in your life right now in which this new energy that is really present with us is too intense, it's too heavy, and so the structure is collapsing? What is being radically, like, altered in your life right now that can no longer work for you anymore, that is ultimately putting an intense amount of pressure on you individually, and then as we kind of see it play out in the world stage, which is more of a manifestation of how these archetypes play out, but as you connect to yourself and how these personal transits are working for you, what has come to its end. And so with the solar eclipse in Capricorn, this is kind of illumination of what it is that you want to take going into this new year as really being authentic and real for you and really true for you, and what is outside the idea of this persona that we need to create and establish and keep energy towards based on what we consider to be the right thing to do. And let me be more specific on that. When I look at the picture again over here, and I talk about the kind of fabric of our experiences and our core, again, I want to really drive this home. Can you see the imagery over here of the tree branches, and it kind of reflects this neurological nervous system that really stretches in. It's like roots. Capricorn speaks to our ancestral roots. It speaks to the context of where we have come from. That's why Pluto's transit through Capricorn reflects to us what choices have we made in the past as a collective that has led us to this point. Understand? So karmically, in terms of cause and effect, the context of this world that we have kind of inhabited, what we have been born into, what the expression of what we are living through right now has a history. And this history contains within it all the experiences of what we have considered to be the right thing at that point in time, or the thing that we needed to understand. So even the expression of, patriarchal law is part of our history, and that shapes and influences the way that our society develops. Because of course there are things that we consider to be not healthy as part of that, And so what is the reaction towards not wanting that anymore? And how do we go about restructuring a reality that acknowledges some of the wisdom that we have understood about those types of choices and behaviors and laws that we put in place? And I just use patriarchy as very, I want to make it 100% clear. Anybody that takes offense to me using that as a slandering, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in the sense that this is the most recent history that we have experienced in terms of the Western world, at least in terms of religion and the necessity for why religion became an important role in the context of how we governed ourselves. And think about how that consistently builds upon that, then ultimately becomes the face. This over here, this bottom piece, this whole entire sort of framework of roots and nervous system, that's the Capricorn part. And then what you see on the surface over here is the Cancer part, and vice versa. This is the polarity of Cancer Capricorn. It is the formation of what has been our past and the identification with it, and how that shows up as how we see ourselves. But it is also the polarity where the very roots of our behavior also reflects the outer sense of self. So right now we're deeply enmeshed in kind of understanding how we are, as a race moving forward, re-establishing the norms and what we constitute as healthy emotional expression versus not, or what we consider to be outdated patterns of thinking that now we realize had damaging effects, as an example, right? Corporal punishment. How many of you that are born sort of like 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, 1980s even, that were exposed to being hit as a way of punishment, right? In your school or in the home, as an example. For me, that was something that I experienced growing up as a child. Those were things that I actually had. Now, think about the consequences of what that talks about as how you develop relationships. Your body instantly reacts to somebody's, like, your boundaries being crossed where you've never had the opportunity to say, this is not okay for me. That's what I mean about the substructure of this energy. It speaks to us becoming very viscerally aware of how we have developed ourselves up until this point in time, the effects of those choices that we may have inherited. Of course, naturally, we're talking 200, 300 years prior to your birth, right? You don't have any influence in that, and then you were born into a collective society in which those traditions and those rules were very relevant at the time. But then as you grew older, they became irrelevant, right? This is the purpose of generations coming in and, you know, sort of rejecting prior generations' truths and so on, because we need to move out of old patterns of truth. This has a lot to do with Capricorn. You know, so we've all internalized, we've all come into a state within inside of ourselves in which all these diverse ways in which we've been defined, in which we've been crystallized, in which the truths reflect who we are now at this point in time, we're really understanding the context of turning them upside down and saying, this is no longer what I accept in my life. This is no longer what I want as part of a healthy expression. And this lunar eclipse will, for the next 6 months, bring us the attention and the emotional growth associated with what it means to integrate the solar eclipse. So how are you going to actively participate in making your dreams, solar eclipse in Capricorn, become alive? What choices are you going to make in which you're going to identify with a self-image that really nurtures that? Okay? And so again, this picture, this imagery speaks to the depth and not only what these energies are about, but also the kind of message here. And you can see that very clearly with Venus in Aquarius squaring Mars. There there's Mars sitting here, 4 degrees Sagittarius, Venus in Aquarius, there's the square, and then you have Jupiter South Node conjunction. You know, what are the core philosophical truths and ideologies and perspectives that once represented the structure of your life, that no longer represent the truth for you anymore? And that square in evolutionary astrology is called a new phase square, right? Or so we're looking at a crisis in action, meaning that we're initiating into ourselves an entirely new way of doing things, but we might not 100% fully know what that's about. So we take 2 steps forward and we feel comfortable, and then we take a step back. Yeah. So right now, for me personally, as I share a personal story of how that manifests for myself, you know, I'm looking to reintegrate integrate into my life a certain practice that really brings me into my center. It's really nurturing and supporting to me. But I've noticed since the solar eclipse that as I've tried to bring it in, I've noticed that the pattern hasn't been right. And so I'm frustrated with wanting to put it into play and what is the value of it. But I've also noticed that I need to look at maybe what types of, maybe I've got to wake up early in the morning as an example. I know that that's what I need to do. I need to wake up early in the morning so that I have the space to practice that. So by integrating that into my day, that is the crisis in action square. You know, it's this new integration of these new values, this new sense of truth, and its capacity to really become very real and honest and authentic without the structure of pre-existing judgments and ways in which we as a society have defined ourselves. So we're liberating ourselves from a lot of the core that we once considered to be the truth. So there's a lot going on in this lunar eclipse over here, and I really hope that I've kind of captured your imagination in terms of the complexity and the depth, and yet the simple message that, hey, this is a time where being more real, truthful, authentic, and stepping into what is who you really are and nurturing that over the next 6 months. Okay? So for all of you that are on my Neptune membership, in your MP3s, what I've gone and done is I've gone and specifically spoken to where these are landing in your actual natal chart. So as you know, I've encouraged you to watch this video before you go and listen to your private MP3s. Yeah, so just for those of you that are on the Neptune membership on our Patreon community, this video gives you very deep analysis, and then, as I said, I've synthesized that in your actual MP3s, your personal ones. Okay. So my friends, before I go ahead and say goodbye, I would really like to say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to sit here and speak to you about things that I see in the charts, that is what come through me. I really hope that this has kind of nourished you, given you something of meaning. If you would like to work with myself or Jen, if you feel that you would like to know how this is actually personally happening in your own personal life, our website is on the internet. We'll paste the link in the description below. You can come check out what we do. Yeah, until then, have an amazing day or evening. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.